now to conclude our keynote address, I have the honor of introducing you to Mr. Peter Ng Joo Hee, who's the Chief Executive Officer of PUB. Peter has led PUB, Singapore's national water agency, since 2015. He is responsible for the supply of potable water, the reclamation and treatment of used water, and the management of stormwater in Singapore. Peter's 31 years in public service were spent in increasingly responsible positions in the police and other government ministries and departments. Prior to PUB, he had been the Commissioner of Police of Singapore, and he graduated with honors in 1988 from Oxford in engineering, science, and economics. So please give a round of applause to Peter. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having me. I'm Peter Ng. I'm the CEO of PUB, and PUB is Singapore's national water agency. I want to use the time given to me this afternoon to tell you about Singapore's water future and about what PUB is doing to make sure that this future will be a good one. I'll limit myself to a 15-minute presentation, which I hope will give you a sense of the water situation in Singapore, the challenges that we face, and our broad strategy for water moving into the future. I think many in this room would have visited Singapore before and know that it is a small place. But few of you will realize just how tiny Singapore is. If you think that Dubai is small, Singapore is way smaller. Singapore is only 720 square kilometers in area, which is more than 5 times smaller than the Emirate of Dubai. But there are lots of people living in Singapore, more than 5.7 million and increasing. The important thing to remember when it comes to water is the fact that there is no city our size or bigger that is naturally self-sufficient in water. Think about it. Every big city has to bring water from outside the metropolis to quench the thirst of its citizens. The Romans built impressive aqueducts to feed their cities. New York City is famous for not having to filter its drinking water because the city fathers bought and protected 5,000 square kilometers of pristine watershed in upstate New York. Tokyo is the same. It gets its water from large forest watersheds way far away from the city limits. And Hong Kong is dependent on the mainland for its water, getting most of its water from the Pearl River. And so it is for Singapore. Today, as much as half of Singapore's water is met by imports from neighboring Malaysia. The almost 6 million people in Singapore use up 430 million gallons or almost 2 million cubic meters of water a day. The fact is that there is just not enough room in Singapore to collect and to store all the rainwater that we need. So Singapore, although right on the equator and in the tropics, is in reality a severely water-stressed country. But we believe that as long as we apply our minds to our situation and do our work well, today's and tomorrow's Singapore should not be short of water. And no Singaporean will ever have to go thirsty. Let me explain broadly how we have been able to achieve this. You don't have to take my word for it when I say that Singapore is severely water stressed. This is a table from a study done by the World Resources Institute in 2015. They estimated and then ranked the countries which they think would be most water stressed for the year 2040. And guess where Singapore is? We are joint number 1, together with Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the country that we're in, the UAE, and the Palestine, all places in the desert. And in case you're wondering where San Marino is, it is one of the few countries in the world that's actually smaller than Singapore. San Marino is less than a tenth the size of Singapore. It is entirely surrounded by Italy and gets all its water from Italy. So I hope by now you will start to appreciate that water security is nothing less than an existential challenge for us in Singapore. That is to say, our continued existence as a sovereign country is directly contingent on enduring water security. Or to put it another way, Singapore's continued ability to ensure water security and sustainability guarantee our national survival and economic prosperity. The late Lee Kuan Yew, our first Prime Minister, recognized this fact from day one, and he had worked tirelessly throughout his career to secure Singapore's water future. He had famously said that water dominated every other policy had to bend at the knees for water survival. In PUB Singapore, there is only one outcome that we care about, and that is to ensure that Singapore will always have enough water. Everything that the PUB does must ultimately lead to this outcome. It is that Singapore will never ever have to go thirsty, and that we will always have enough water. The organization that I lead, PUB, is Singapore's national water agency and the sole water utility in Singapore. Our mission is straightforward. In the PUB, we do 3 things and 3 things only. Number 1, we supply good water. Number 2, we reclaim used water. And number 3, we tame storm water. This is the mission that my hardworking colleagues execute every day with pride and with dedication. By supplying good water, reclaiming used water, and taming storm water, they make everyday life in Singapore possible. And because my officers work hard and take their work seriously, they also help to make a successful and prosperous Singapore possible. In the PUB, our vision is to work towards a future where Singapore will always have enough water, and where every Singaporean will cherish every drop of water. The point to note is that the PUB is an all-water agency, dealing with potable water, with used water, and also with storm water. And many of you in this room will know that this is a rare creature indeed in the world of water utilities. In most places, the water department is separate, is more often than not separate from the sewage department, which is separate again from the drainage department. And invariably, all 3 departments will work at cross purposes. So having an integrated all-water agency, and therefore the ability to operate the entire water system, is the first ingredient in our secret sauce. This chart shows our current best estimates for water demand in Singapore up to the year 2061. 2061 is a special year. It will be then that our existing water agreement with neighboring Malaysia will end, and when we will have to assume that there will be no more imported water into Singapore. There are 2 things to note from this chart. One is that total demand will more than double in 2061. The other point to note is that non-domestic demand is already more than domestic or household demand for water in Singapore. And we expect non-domestic use to really take off and to make up the bulk of total demand by 2061. As I speak to you now, all of us in Singapore use up about 430 million gallons of water a day. Singapore has an existing water agreement with Malaysia. This 99-year agreement allows us to draw 250 million gallons every day, to treat it, and then to import it into Singapore. We have passed the halfway mark on this water agreement with Malaysia. It has 42 years more to run and will expire in the year 2061. Come 2061, Singapore will of course consume a lot more water compared to what we are using today. We estimate that it will be double in 2061, double of what it is today. So today it is 430, and we think it will double, or it will be 860 million gallons a day in 2061. 860 minus 430 is of course 430. This extra 430 million gallons of water is something that we do not have today. It is water that we will need to find by 2061. And in addition, do not forget that in 2061, imported water will cease altogether. And the 250 million gallons that we are importing today will have also to be replaced. And then we'll be left entirely with local sources. So 250 to replace imports, plus 430 to cater for additional demand equals 680 million gallons a day. So in the end, the math is simple. Singapore just needs to find an extra 680 million gallons of water a day by the year 2061. 680 million gallons of water is a lot of water, and PUB Singapore has to find it, and we cannot fail in this mission. Where will all this additional water come from? All 680 million gallons of it every day, day after day. It won't be from Malaysia because the water agreement will have ended by then. It won't be coming from the sky, that's for sure, because A, we expect that climate change will bring less rain, and B, there will be more space in Singapore for us to collect and to store much more rainwater. So this additional water can only come from recycled water and from the sea. And we really have little choice in this. So now you know that despite being in the tropics, where it rains every other day, Singapore is actually very short of water. We are one of the most water-stressed countries in the world, simply because we do not have the space to catch and then to keep all of the rainwater that we need. Half of our daily water supply comes from across the border, but our water agreement with Malaysia will end in 2061, 42 years from now. By then, our demand for water will also be double what it is today. The additional water that Singapore needs tomorrow can only come from recycled water and from the sea. Singapore's water future lies with reuse and with desalination. So PUB Singapore has to be the best in the world in these two areas. We have to lead the world when it comes to reclaiming used water and when it comes to desalinating seawater. Because quite simply, our future depends on it, and our children's future depends on it. Singapore's water strategy can be summarized in 3 parts. First of all, we have to maximize our own yield. And so we strive to collect every drop of rain that falls on Singapore. This means turning as much of Singapore into a water catchment as possible. It also means keeping our drains, our canals, and our waterways pristinely clean. Secondly, we have to think of water as an endlessly reusable resource. In our minds, the H2O molecule is never lost. Water can always be reclaimed and retreated so that it can be drunk again. And PUB is a world leader in this. Today, we are able to literally turn toilet water into sweet water for very little money. We reclaim every drop of sewage and turn most of it into new water, which is our brand of ultra high quality recycled water that is of portable quality. Today, I actually have enough new water capacity to supply 40% of Singapore's demand. And thirdly, because Singapore is an island and surrounded by the sea, we can turn seawater into drinking water. So when membrane technology made desalination affordable, PUB adopted it with great zeal. And today, PUB Singapore is among one of the largest desalinators in the world. The real secret to the Singapore water story is the closing of the water loop. Let me explain briefly. There is rain falls and becomes storm water. Storm water is collected in drains and canals, channeled to reservoirs, and then stored. Stored rainwater is treated to become potable water, which is then supplied to people, to commerce, and to industry. As we supply good water, water that has been used is returned to us in the form of sewage. That used water is collected, treated, and turned into good water again to be supplied for human use or stored in reservoirs. At the same time, seawater is desalinated, turned into good water, and fed into the loop. Our trick in Singapore is to close the water loop and to manage the whole thing as an integrated system. In this way, we turn the water loop into a virtuous cycle. It is now quite fashionable to speak of the circular economy. The Singapore water economy, then, is a very good example of a circular economy. Our arrival at a circular water economy in Singapore is largely driven by necessity. However, having achieved it, the Singapore method may just also be a viable model for other parts of the world still struggling with water security. I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope that my short presentation has given you a better idea of how we have solved our water problems in Singapore. I also hope that it perhaps may also hold lessons or insights for some of you. And if that is the case, we are always happy to share. Thank you very much.